Greetings, everyone. I am Ann Margaret McCraw, Managing Director of the Southeastern Association of Orthopedic Executives, here today with Matt Gracey of Danna-Gracey and Risk Strategies Company to talk about a concept we have referenced before, but I think we need to understand a little bit better. And Matt's the expert, so he's going to talk us through it. And that is, what is a risk purchasing group and how might that be a benefit to our association? So Matt, first, before we jump in, tell us just a little bit about who you are, your company, and why you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Ann Margaret. We really are honored to be here and working with you and the association. We have had great success with Frazier and you all in Florida with risk purchasing group formations, and particularly with the Florida Orthopedic Society and the Florida Bones Organization. We are now pushing 15 years in that program, and it's been highly successful. So when we were discussing the Southeast organization, we thought this would be a perfect fit for you all as well, because it's just such a powerful program and has been such a huge success here in Florida.
And most of the audience will know that I spent the previous 20 plus years at Midlands Orthopedics and Neurosurgery in Columbia, South Carolina, also managed by Cobb Consulting, which is how I know these guys, and had the privilege then of trying to work on a founders group for the RPG. So I think I know what your questions are going to be, and that's the benefit. So we're going to kind of go through those because we were not big enough at the time to launch that. And with our expansion to now include Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama in this association, we think we may have a critical mass that it's really worth giving it another shot. So as we begin to explore that, I'm going to ask Matt to explain as simply as he can, what is a risk purchasing group?
Risk purchasing groups, RPGs as we call them, are actually allowed by the federal government to override the rules of all the state insurance departments. There are umpteen thousand regulations that the state insurance folks put on every insurance carrier. But with an RPG, the insurance companies can basically get around some of those rules, particularly in charging the rates that they see as actuarially sound for a defined group of like kind risk, i.e. A group of orthopedic surgeons and their practices.
And I should clarify, I'm not sure I said it before, we're talking about malpractice coverage. RPGs could probably apply to other types of insurance, but right now we're talking about malpractice coverage.
Exactly.
Yep.
They're a cousin. RPGs are a cousin to risk retention groups, which many might have heard of. And risk retention groups, however, require capitalization. And in essence, you're starting a small insurance company. With risk purchasing groups, there's no investment up front. And there's no barrier to entry, and there's no barrier to exit. And so you're really not putting yourself in any risk by joining the risk purchasing group. All it really does is it unifies like kind of risks so that you can negotiate with insurance companies at a much more powerful level. And so what we have done in Florida with a number of groups, including the Florida Orthopedic Society, is we've put together hundreds of orthopedic surgeons, and then we negotiate with the insurance companies with great transparency. We put out an RFP to all of the insurers once we have our group formed. And that's the magic of it, is we get the entire market basically competing for your business, but competing for your business with hundreds of orthopedic surgeons unifying. The good news is that, again, we're not looking for investment. We're just trying to help facilitate you all putting together your group.
All right, I'm going to summarize what I think you said, and then you tell me if I get it right. So I think in essence, an RPG is a mechanism for us as orthopedic practices to collectively bargain for malpractice insurance. So the RPG would be made up of members of our association, and the RPG itself it becomes an entity, correct? It's a purchasing entity, which would be like it will have a tax ID, I assume. It's a
Correct.
real legal entity, but
Mhm.
it is essentially owned by the members of the association. So then the RPG selects a carrier. We send out that RFP, we select one particular carrier, and then when that selection is made, the RPG members have the opportunity to purchase coverage for their practices, their physicians from that carrier, and the rates from that carrier should be significantly less because of the collective bargaining. Is it fair to say group purchasing, or is that an inaccurate use of that term?
Well, it's group purchasing, but with a twist, because each group can still have their own limits, deductibles, all kinds of different particular items in the insurance coverage that group might want. So it's group purchasing, but with lots of flexibility within the group. Now, let's say that you have a group and you've put your name in the hat and said, okay, we'd like to do this. But then the RFP comes back and for some reason or another, you just don't want to participate. That's fine. There's no obligation.
Right. And so just to clarify, each group's policy is still their policy. So it's not as if we're in some giant shared policy. We're just sharing the buying power and a discount. We have the opportunity to have our own nuances in plan design, so to speak. As you said, deductibles or different limits or whatever. And we're not, this is a part that I think tripped me up initially when I was learning about it. A practice in the group, in the risk purchasing group, is not at risk for another practice's bad claims directly. And I think that's folks feel like if we're getting the benefit of buying together, then in some way I must be liable for another group's bad actors. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Ann Margaret. There's no cross liabilities, and there's no ability for the insurance company to come back and assess anyone for any of the losses within the program or losses that might have incurred with another group or anything like that. So it's a very clean arrangement that way, and certainly has very little concern about some cross liabilities that other group arrangements might have.
Another unique part of this program that was not immediately obvious to me when I first learned about it is the opportunity for members to have a claims committee where member physicians, orthopedic surgeons who understand exactly what these cases are and how they play out and what can go wrong and what's appropriate and what's not, those individuals can serve on a claims committee where all of the claims that come through any of the member groups through this RPG, and they have an opportunity to weigh in. Can you talk a little bit about the role of that committee, how it interfaces with the carrier, exactly how much influence there is, and what the benefit is of having that type of benefit to the plan?
Well, this is what I say is where the rubber meets the road. Of course, the first goal in a purchasing group is to drive the pricing down, hopefully to wholesale levels is what our goals are. But even more importantly, frankly, is driving the claims profile down of each participant in the risk purchasing group. And so we do that. One of the very effective ways, not just with risk management techniques, but also with this claims review committee. And again, as I spoke, it's very different than just a vendor type relationship with your malpractice carrier, because now you're going to have some of the best orthopedic surgeons and best administrators reviewing the claims of any one in the group, doing it anonymously, by the way, so that there's no personality issues. And it is absolutely amazing to me what goes on in these claims review committees. The carriers love it, of course, because they're getting some very, very good feedback from some very good members and very good orthopedic surgeons. And so they get directed uh, to handle claims in ways that they might not ordinarily think of. Again, these claims reps in some of these insurance companies are very astute. But when you have a group of some of the best orthopedic surgeons and administrators sitting around discussing the finer details of a claim, it's absolutely amazing to me what can transpire during that relationship.
And just to make sure we're all using the same terminology, when you say risk profile or claims profile, what exactly do you mean?
Well, just to drive down the number of claims and the severity of claims against any member of the risk purchasing group. That's really the goal. And there's the claims review, but there's also then each our partner carrier will bring in their own risk management professionals to also help disseminate information within the group. So not only do we disseminate some of the information from the claims review committee work, because what happens is you start to see trends, and those trends don't often get communicated out to the doctors and the administrators, but within this group, they absolutely do. And so you have the claims review driving down claims, and then the risk management folks helping to drive claims down. And again, that's just where all the goodness comes.
And I had the opportunity earlier this year to sit in on the claims review committee for the Florida RPG. And I just want to share with our association members, that was fascinating. The room was filled with orthopedic subspecialists. The claims were assigned for initial review by a subspecialist who does the same thing, which we all know is a huge frustration to physicians when they're being critiqued by anyone who doesn't do what they do. So you had that benefit. And the other just fascinating part is the insurance representatives were in the meeting as well, and they listen to what the doctors are saying. So that is whether that comes from prior authorization, we hear it all the time, but also from a malpractice standpoint, doctors are so frustrated when they're being judged by people who don't truly understand what they're doing. So that's a tremendous benefit. And then to have a carrier partner who values that information and takes it seriously. So I just want to put a word in to vouch that I watched that happen. And Florida has a great precedent for that. And so just to clarify, it's not a foregone conclusion who the carrier will be. The first thing is that we need a little bit of information from each practice that is interested. It is no commitment. That becomes our founders group. We need the more the better, but we need probably at least 100 physicians represented to have sufficient buying power for Matt to take that to market and put the RFP out there and see what carriers respond. And then the leadership of the RPG, which we should talk about, how is that leadership formed? The leadership of the RPG will work with Matt's team to select the carrier, and then we go from there. So no commitment until even at the point we select a carrier, each practice would get a quote from that carrier, and you negotiate that, and we see where it goes from there. But let's back up 2 points: founders group, but also leadership of the RPG. How does the leadership form?
Well, it's really determined by the association. What we have seen is usually the board of the whole association will appoint a chairman to lead the risk purchasing group, and then there's really a call for volunteers. And again, it's all up to the group on how they would like to have it be led and by whom.
And then the founders group that when we say that, we simply mean who's willing to toss their hat in to the initial RFP. And again, with no commitment that you have to follow all the way through, but we can't get a quote. We're not going to be competitive in the market unless we have a critical mass of covered lives, right, of physicians in the group, and allied professionals too, I assume. So that is probably our next step. And we wanted to have this little conversation today to give an overview of the concept. And we are going to post some pretty detailed FAQs, make those available to you on our website, and then also via email. We're going to send it out along with this link. And Matt is always available, would love to hear from you if you have questions that we did not cover. Because we really believe that this is an opportunity to benefit each individual practice and also the association. All right, so let's summarize. we have the SAOE, Southeastern Association of Orthopedic Executives, is wanting to embark down the road of forming a risk purchasing group called RPG for short, because we don't have enough initials in healthcare already. So an RPG that would allow members of our association to bulk buy, basically, malpractice insurance while preserving each practice's opportunity to choose limits and deductibles and not be judged on other practices' claims, judged individually. The carriers selected by the RPG after an RFP is distributed, so it's not a foregone conclusion who that will be. And then each group is given the opportunity to receive a quote and decide whether that's a decision they want to make and go down that road. Broker relationships can be maintained. The only caveat is the broker needs to already be aligned as an agent for that carrier. But if they're not, there's the possibility they could become an agent for that carrier. So that shouldn't be a deterrent to consideration of throwing your name in the hat. And probably our next action item, and the next thing you will hear about, is a founders group and a call for folks to give us enough information to get an RFP together. Did I summarize that correctly, Matt?
You did very well, better than I do, I think, Ann-Margaret.
And one final word to my colleagues that remember that we did try this before and why didn't it work? And we didn't really go down that, we'd never finished going down the road. And that was before the association had expanded. So we even tried it just in South Carolina. We just didn't have enough folks to join because so many had become employed by hospitals. And that just kind of takes them out of the purchasing arena for their own malpractice coverage. So we're in a different place now, and we have 4 states that this would be open to. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to kick it off in 2023, and you will be hearing more about it. And we'll make sure Matt's information is available to you if you have questions that we didn't cover. Any final thoughts, Matt?
No, I just really proud to be here working with you, Ann-Margaret, and excited about the possibilities of a RPG in the Southeast.
Yeah, we're hoping we can get it done in 2023. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.